I've seen both the sites at both Monash and University of Melbourne, and the encampments there are peaceful. These protests are no different than any protests against war in previous decades at universities. And so my question is, why can't we acknowledge that the imminent ground invasion of Rafah would be in a violation of the ICJ's interim judgment in January to protect Palestinians in the occupied Gaza Strip from genocide? And why aren't our media focusing on what can be done to stop that, rather than stopping peaceful student protesters?
Okay, and those deliberations are still going. Those ICJ deliberations could take years, but it's a really interesting question about, well, it's twofold, as I hear it, about the encampments across the country, but also the impending invasion of Rafah.
Yeah, and a whole lot of this has been unfolding today. We're gravely concerned and gravely worried about this. The Foreign Minister's put out a statement probably after a lot of you left to come here tonight, saying again for Israel to not go down this path. There's 1.3 million people in a very small area who went there because they were told it was safe. And there is now serious hunger issues. The concept of telling 100,000 people now up and move, there are huge risks with this. I haven't met anybody who doesn't say that they want the hostages released. People want the hostages released. But it has to be possible for us to say the toll on civilians needs to stop. And the only thing that I'd add to what you say about the media coverage, part of the problem that we have around the world with the media coverage is the reported death of something like 100 journalists, or killing of 100 journalists, means getting accurate information on the ground in the way that it would ordinarily be possible isn't happening there at the moment as well.
Okay, on the encampments, which have become very, very politicised, the coalition, I'm going to go to you, Paul Fletcher, on this, but has called for them to be broken up by police. Tony Burke, do you support that?
No, I think we have to have peace. We have to allow peaceful protest. It has to be peaceful protest, and when I say peaceful, that doesn't just mean non-physically violence. There ought not be hate speech either. All of that matters.
Okay, some Jewish students are saying they're concerned about some of the slogans, from the river to the sea. There are others. Do you think they're problematic slogans?
Oh, that slogan is something that I wouldn't use because I support a two-state solution. And that while some people who use that slogan say that they support two-state, it's usually taken by people to not mean that. Historically, it's been used since the 1970s, sometimes by, like the Likud Party have used it as a slogan in slightly different words, but effectively the same slogan, to say it should all be Israel. If it's used to say the whole area should be one state, that's not our position. We believe in two states. When I think of hate speech, though, I think of some much more horrific direct comments that have been made, which obviously I'm not going to repeat on television. No. But I think the physical just marching in and breaking up, if a protest is peaceful, the reality is it just escalates the situation, makes everything worse. But we are a country where we should be able to have peaceful protest, and we should be able to accept that there'll be very strong, passionate views that will be different. And on a university campus of all places, that should be okay.
Okay. Paul Fletcher, your side of politics, including the shadow Education Minister Sarah Henderson, has called for the police to be called in and for these camps to be basically moved away from campus. Why do you think that's necessary?
Well, let's remember how this started, an unprovoked terrorist attack which caused 1,200 people to be killed, men, women and children, hundreds of people taken as hostage, many of them still kept hostage in Gaza today. Hamas could bring this to an end by releasing the hostages, but they are engaging in the most cynical and deplorable conduct. And at the same time, what we are seeing and hearing, and I'm hearing it from my own Jewish constituents, I represent the electorate in New South Wales with the second biggest Jewish community, and my constituents are concerned for their safety, and the extent of anti-Semitism we're seeing at the moment is extremely troubling. and we need to have order maintained. We need Jewish students to be able to move around campuses. We need students of every background.
Okay, is
to be
there
able to
any
move around
evidence that
campuses.
Jewish students can't move around campuses in Australia? I know there's an adjacent conversation going on in the US, but I'm talking about our campuses. Is there evidence that Jewish students aren't safe physically on campus?
We need campuses to be a place of safe and respectful conduct, and we are not seeing that at the moment.
So you don't think Jewish students are safe on campus?
I am aware of direct concerns about safety expressed to me by my Jewish constituents. I don't think that's a contentious proposition. Jewish Australians are feeling very unsafe.
Yeah. Tony, they are, but then the protesters say we have a right to protest. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, first of all, and I think it's really important we don't become competitive in the sense of all forms of bigotry are repugnant and offensive. Anti-Semitism, a whole lot of people are experiencing anti-Semitism at levels they have never experienced before in their lives in Australia, and that's real and it's wrong. Islamophobia is also at a huge peak at the moment, and it's real and it's wrong. And so that's why I say when something is clearly hate speech, when something is clearly bullying, and I've called it out when it's happened in my own electorate as well, we need to be very, very clear that everybody needs to be safe. So yes, I have heard the examples of people being bullied in lecture theatres, being photographed if they won't stand up and declare support and things like that. None of that should happen. But
if it is happening...
But I don't think the answer is to say everybody peacefully protesting, we're now going to go after all of you. I don't think you get to that point. I think we need to be a mature enough nation that where hate speech occurs, we target that without losing being a nation where people can also respectfully take a stand on something they passionately believe in.
Carolyn, how do you see it?
For me, I make muesli bars. It's not my world, but I just feel really sad that we're in this situation.
Yeah.
I feel super sad, and there's just so many people who, are really hurting at the moment. And I know in the area where I live, Jewish students, they don't wear their school uniforms when they leave school. They wear casual clothes because they're scared of their safety. And I think that in this day and age, I heard a story of a friend the other day, and there was a girl in an Uber, and she had her Star of David, and the Uber driver just pulled over and said, "Get out of my Uber," and kicked her out. And so and I just feel like this much
school
hate.
Student.
No, this was actually an adult. This was a mum.
A mum kicked out of an Uber.
Yes, because she had a Star of David on. So I just feel like we just don't want this hate, and we don't want to live this life where there is just so much hate that is bubbling up.
Can I just pick up on that point? I think that is really important. We are one of the world's most successful multicultural, multiracial, multi-ethnic nations. That hasn't happened by accident, because we've all worked really hard at it for 30, 40, 50 years. And now more than ever, we all need to work really hard at that.
If I could just quickly get you on the actual potential ground incursion into Rafah, is that something you're concerned about?
The situation in Gaza is obviously a deeply challenging one. I'm not going to add to the comments that have been made on the Coalition's behalf by our leader, by our Foreign Affairs spokesman. It's a very complex issue, but I go back to what I started with. Hamas is holding innocent Israeli civilians hostage, and if they were serious about peace, the first thing they would do is release those hostages.